That's number one. You kind of reset your
painful, tender to the touch. May also
same shoulder length, and the other. Well, hello, happy Monday, and welcome back to another episode of the Real Health Podcast with Brandi and Amir. I am Dr. Amir Rashidian, a chiropractor, and Brandi is the other half, and probably the smarter one. But
I don't know about that. You have a pretty good brain.
She's the less organized one of the two of us.
For sure.
But
in all fairness, you have a good focus, which is the office, and then my focus is everything else.
So you're lumping the podcast in with the office.
Yes.
Because these articles, that has nothing to do with the office.
Correct. Okay, so you have two focuses.
How did you sleep? Let's go there.
Because
this conversation won't go anywhere nice.
Not at all.
Well, let me tell them this. The Real Health Podcast is where we take all the latest information that you should be reading, but you probably don't have time to do. And it's information on health and wellness, new drugs, new treatments, new diseases, trends in healthcare, and whatever else is coming down that you should know about. We read those articles, we summarize them, we explain them to you, we tell you what it should mean to you and how to apply it to your life. The purpose of why we do this podcast is to help you feel better, get stronger, meaning more resilient towards stress, and live longer and feel younger. And so I was asking Brandi how she slept. What do you think? How'd you sleep?
I had actually been struggling a little bit with my sleep, and my bodybuilding coach had recommended a cortisol support. And so I started taking a cortisol support in the evenings before I went to bed, and my sleep has been really good. Matter of fact, I've been waking up before my alarm.
Wow.
And I wake up not groggy, which is very new for me.
Nice.
So, yeah, I've had some good sleep the past couple of weeks. I've been using that, so I'm happy.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cortisol should be low at night and high in the morning. And cortisol is what wakes you up naturally. Mm-hmm. So when cortisol hits the highest level for you, you'll wake up and you won't be able to sleep anymore.
Yeah.
Before your alarm clock.
But yeah, it's like I said, it's been new. I've never been a morning person. Matter of fact, I used to set my alarm and I would snooze it a lot. Now, you're a light sleeper, so that would be bothersome to you. I never hear if you snooze your alarm, but I know that affects you. So I think it's been nice. Has it been nice not hearing me snooze my alarm?
I always get up before you.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So maybe it doesn't bother you that much. I don't even know when you're getting out of bed. It's great.
It might only be on a Saturday where I try to sleep in and her alarm keeps going off, but that's not because she wants to get up. It's because she never turned off her alarm from Friday.
That happens sometimes.
So it's her Friday alarm going off on Saturday morning at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And every 5 minutes after that. Now, I set my snooze at 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But yours is 5 minutes. So it's every 5 minutes from 6 a.m. until 9 a.m.
So now this is a glimpse into some of the rockiness in the Rashidian household. Has to do with alarms. I mean, I get frustrated when our kids won't set their own alarms.
Yep.
So
Well,
here we go.
Some of us don't set our alarms and some of us don't turn them off.
That is very true.
So,
it's a double-edged sword.
But I've learned, I usually Friday night, I'll say, turn off your alarm before you go to sleep.
Woohoo.
So anyways, why are we talking about sleep?
Well, because we all need it. We have a couple articles on it. And I really laughed when I went through. So I read this while I was doing some of my cardio. And I was like, could not believe in this one specific article. It's a really long article, so you're welcome for not making you read this.
It's like 30 pages long and it's worthless.
And it's so redundant. And so anyway, I read and I just kept shaking my head because I go, there's so many more things they could be talking about or recommending, and they just don't know what they don't know.
That's
so
right.
It's kind of sad.
Which is funny because they're supposedly talking to sleep experts. But Matthew Walker is the main sleep expert. He is probably the world's foremost author, regarding sleep. And he wrote a book called Why We Sleep. You want to read something useful, read that.
Yeah.
But I've read it, so I'll tell you what it says. But I do want you to read his book and get more out of it. What I'll tell you is probably going to be just 1% of the information he can share in that book. So let's jump right in. This article is in the New York Times, July 7th, 2023. The title was Sleep Better at Every Age. The amount of
Now you know
sleep.
why it was such a long article.
Yep. They basically told you the same thing with every age.
Yeah.
The amount of sleep a person needs recalibrates over time, and circadian rhythms change with age. The 16-year-old who stayed up until midnight may become a 36-year-old who gets drowsy by 10 p.m. At 70, a man who never had any sleep issues might wake up at 4 a.m. unable to fall back asleep. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has age-specific recommendations for how much sleep people should get each night. Understanding your sleep needs throughout different life stages and troubleshooting the problems that arise can clear the way for a better night's rest. So some of the things they want you to do is it says find let's see, it says 4 out of 5 people say that they suffer from sleep problems at least once a week and wake up feeling exhausted. So you used to be one of those, not anymore. Poor sleep can make anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues worse. We actually have an article about understanding sleep. That one's from Johns Hopkins, and we'll go over that after this. Sleep deprivation doesn't just feel terrible, it can also hamper your ability to form and recall memories, which makes sense. It literally is a blood sugar
Well, I mean, we have
cortisol
to
issue.
remember sleep deprivation is what they use in torture, right?
That's
It's
right.
one of
It's the most
it's a
effective form of
strategy.
torture. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yep. So and they briefly mentioned to get better sleep, you should have a good mattress and a good pillow. And the reason I mention it is because they don't tell you what mattress and what pillow. They just say good mattress, good pillow. But we have a YouTube video on our YouTube channel. The channel is called Real Chiropractic, and we walk you through on how to pick your own perfect mattress. So please watch that video if you're looking for a mattress. I don't like to recommend the specific brand or a
correct.
type because everything is different for everybody.
Ooh, maybe we can put a link up to the video and I can go, if you follow this link, can you put it there, Sean, and make me point to it? I love editing. So fun. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually see it. It's right there.
Right? Yeah.
Yep. I
Want to
saw it
hold
when you're
it,
playing.
pet
Just
it, touch it.
suddenly showed up. It's amazing. I don't know if you guys can see it. I can see it. And then we have another one on how to use your pillow correctly, and that link will be where would that one be? Above me. It's right there. So
I
check
can't wait to see the short on this one.
check those out. Now, let's start with babies, toddlers, and preschoolers. So sleep is perhaps most critical during the first years of life, and babies sleep in long stretches both during the day and at night. Newborns spend 14 to 17 hours sleeping each day. Do you know koala bears sleep 18 hours a day?
Wow.
So our babies actually, even though they're sleeping 14 to 17 hours, it's still less than a koala bear.
That's wow.
They have a good life, those koala bears.
Yeah. I wonder what sloths sleep. That
Yeah.
would be a good thing to know.
Look that up. Once infants hit the 4-month mark, they tend to sleep a little less, around 12 to 16 hours over a 24-hour period. Dr. Craig Canapari, a pediatric sleep expert at Yale University, says that sleep training, the process of teaching babies how to soothe themselves at night and sleep independently, can start when infants are 3 to 4 months old. Did we do that with our kids?
Well, I mean, no.
I think they trained us.
They were also, what they don't tell you is every child is so vastly different. I think the one thing that I would like parents to know at this age, which the sleep experts are never going to tell you because they don't usually venture into this area, is if that baby's nervous system is not functioning at peak performance, if there's any interference, babies can't go, my head's really bugging me today and I'm not really feeling that great. Like they can't do that. And so, I would recommend get your baby checked by a chiropractor who's had training in pediatrics. It's vastly different than adjusting an adult, but knowing that there's no interference, and that everything is functioning the way it should, so that babies can sleep well, or that they're comfortable. Because if there's a misalignment in that little spine, they may not be feeling good. I know what it feels like to have a rib out of place, and it's so easy for a parent to pick the baby up and to accidentally cause a rib head to pop out, right? I mean, it's not
Or
uncommon.
push it in too far. Yeah.
Yeah, and so getting the baby checked to make sure that everything's aligned properly so that they can sleep
Yeah.
is also so important. So if that hasn't been done before you do anything else, that would be one of the first things you want to look at. Because if they're uncomfortable because the spine's not aligned properly, which, for the record, just in a normal, what we consider a normal delivery, can really cause a lot of trauma to the cervical spine. And if it's a C-section, they don't even know what they're grabbing to pull that baby out. And so to be able to have that baby checked by somebody who knows what they're doing and knows what to look for and how to fix it, can be a fantastic place to start. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. It used to be like a party trick where you'd hand me one of our babies, we'd have people over, and I would adjust just the little spot on the top of the neck, and the baby would fall asleep instantly.
yeah, it's
And
really nice.
Everybody would say, "That's crazy."
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That's what we do at our parties to
That's-
entertain
yeah,
people.
that's it. So we don't have infants anymore.
So bring yours over.
The youngest is about to turn 8.
1 week from Friday. It's
Yeah.
wild.
So as children become toddlers and preschoolers, they need less sleep than babies do, around 10 to 14 hours over a 24-hour period. It's important for kids this age to have a consistent bedtime and a simple nightly routine, which could include a bedtime story or song, especially as they phase out naps. I'm phasing in naps. They're phasing out naps.
You phased those in a while ago.
I'm a napper.
You are a certified napper.
If there's one addiction I have, it's napping.
Yeah, you're actually excellent at it.
10 minutes.
Yeah.
In and out. So it can take up to 12 weeks for newborns to develop a circadian drive that prompts them to sleep during the night, Dr. Canapari said, which means babies can end up crying throughout the night and sleeping through the day. So sunlight sends a powerful signal and can help your baby stay awake. While you don't want to place infants directly in the sun, exposing them to light through a window or sitting with them outside during the day, but in shade, can help, Dr. Canapari says, which I think that's not bad advice, you know.
Yeah, but there's a flip side to that
during the
that
day,
they
they're in the
never talked
bright-
about.
What's that?
Well, the flip side of the light. So we'll get to some of that, but there's, being outside and getting vitamin D and having the sunlight hit so your body understands it's daytime and that's the time to be awake is super important. But there's another side to that, that we'll talk about here in just a little bit.
Stay in the dark
Mm-hmm.
at night. Yeah, you're right. They didn't talk about it in the article. It says it's normal for newborns to take up to 4 naps a day, Dr. Canterbury said, a number that gradually diminishes as they get older. Around the 1 year mark, babies tend to take 2 to 3 naps. That third nap often falls away later, between 6 and 15 months. But at any age, nap time can become a challenge. Some kids just refuse to rest during the day and can be fussy and irritable without a nap. If your child is sleeping well at night but won't nap during the day, make sure the routine leading up to nap time is similar to the bedtime rituals you have in place, which we've done. We used to read a little bedtime story.
Yep.
And then we would also read a
Routines.
bedtime story at nap time, and they would sleep. So moving on to grade school years, elementary and middle school aged children usually function best when they get 9 to 12 hours. So that number keeps decreasing. 9 to 12 hours of sleep each night. Adequate rest is a critical component in helping them grow, especially as their brains develop. Sleep also affects school performance. Kids need rest so that they can better absorb and retain the information they learn during the day. Setting a consistent sleep and wake time can help parents nudge their children into regular patterns of rest. If the child struggles with insomnia or night terrors, we never had night terrors, right?
No, the only time we ever experienced anything close to that was actually a side effect from a fever reducer. Navid had run a fever for about 4 days, and we had let him fever to go through it, which we typically do. But he was exhausted, so his primary, who typically does not recommend reducing a fever initially, she said, "Well, why don't you go ahead and give him a little bit of this particular."
Children's blank blank.
And she said, give him just a little bit of that so that his body can just rest, like take his fever down just a little bit so he can just recover, and then let it come back up. Well, that kid, after taking, started hallucinating. And it took us a little bit to figure out what it was. And I finally went back and I'm like, the only thing different, he's never done this before. And I looked in very fine print on the inside insert that boys 8 to 12, I think it was, or 7 to 10, it was like a range for boys, only boys. When they take this painkiller or fever reducer, it can cause hallucinations. And they were intense. Like, it was scary. At one point, I thought he was possessed, and I was like, oh. So, yeah, that was nerve-wracking. So I can't imagine a child having night terrors. I mean,
in a little bit, she'll actually do an impersonation of him while he was possessed. It's pretty funny. I don't know if she'll do it or not, but we definitely didn't rehearse it in the pre-show.
I think I would be embarrassed of the short that would be created from
Oh yeah,
that,
you
so.
never know. You never know. There's a lot of things that become shorts.
That's right.
School grade, elementary. We talked about this. Night terrors, right?
Yep.
Around 20% of children have difficulty falling or staying asleep. Kids might also deal with night terrors in which they kick, thrash, or scream and typically do not remember the experience in the morning. Doctors aren't entirely sure why children have night terrors. Dr. Roth said, adding that they are far more common in children than in adults. So the pediatrician can recommend treatment options like cognitive behavioral therapy. As disconcerting as night terrors may be, Dr. Roth said, there's something to write out, not solve. She recommends that parents avoid waking children during a night terror, but comfort them as much as you can, she said. Children may feel more confused if you wake them up and may then struggle to fall back asleep. And that's something I didn't know. Do you think that's true? That don't wake them up, just let them be terrorized in their sleep?
I think I probably have heard that before. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not a sleep expert. I'm not really sure what the basis of that is. But I think I would want somebody to wake me up if I was having a night terror. I don't think I want to just live that out.
Can I tell them what our middle kid did in his sleep?
Sure. I don't even know if I remember what he did.
You remember. This is funny. We were watching TV. They had been in bed for a couple hours.
Oh, I think I remember.
Next thing I know, we heard footsteps. And our middle boy is standing at the top of the stairs.
He's going to be so mad that you shared this. Should have just had one of our children.
We thought he was awake. So we walk over to the steps. What's up?
What are you doing, buddy?
Go back to bed. And then he looked at us. He pulled out his thing and started urinating down the steps.
Yeah, that was a mess to clean up.
And so we can't go up the steps because, there's a waterfall.
And we're standing at the bottom of the steps going, stop, what are you doing? Stop. He was very confused when he
finished and went back to bed, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he did come to at some point, but he didn't remember any of it the next day.
He did not. Yeah, so that's not exactly a night terror.
It was terrorizing for me.
It's a night terror for us. Yeah. So, anyways.
And our oldest, Navid, he went through a period where he was sleepwalking.
Yeah.
And so I remember hearing him come in. I think I had gone to the bathroom. We hadn't been asleep very long, had come to sit down, and he came in the room and like walked up right to me and was like, "Hi, mom." And it was so creepy. Yeah, he was walking a lot for a little while. So,
He remember he climbed down the top bunk,
yes.
grabbed our second boy,
Yeah, and was trying to pull him off the
and
bed.
pulled him out of the bed, and dropped him on the floor, and went back up and went to bed.
Yeah,
He doesn't
he
remember that.
claims he doesn't remember that
Neither
either.
of them remember that one.
Oh, kids and sleep is so much fun.
Yeah.
There
So
was one thing I wanted to point out back on the infant side. I was thinking about this. Sometimes as babies, parents say, you know, my baby doesn't really like to be swaddled and things like that when they're sleeping. One thing though is that there's a startle reflex that's present in infants up to a certain age. And sometimes the startle reflex, if they're not, there are like specialty sleepers that help to confine the arms a little bit more, which can really help to reduce that startle reflex, which can help babies to stay asleep longer. So
yeah,
if
so
you,
they think they're falling, and they'll
yeah,
jump.
which is kind of like us when we fall asleep and we think we're falling and we have that, start. They have that a lot when they're infants. And so that's why swaddling is a recommendation, because it keeps their arms from flailing, which is what ends up waking them up. So there are some sleepers that you can get. Our youngest had a really big startle reflex, and so he really struggled with that. So we found some special sleepers that actually confined his arms a little bit and helped him to sleep better. So
Screens are sabotaging your child's sleep, it says, particularly when kids hit double digits. They may have access to devices such as phones and tablets, which can tempt them to stay up longer.
well, that's not the biggest issue when it comes to devices and screens. So there's issues with like blue light, correct? That can affect the body neurologically. There's a overstimulation that's an issue as well.
Well,
So
lighting your eyes at night blocks melatonin production.
right, which is what I was saying earlier, was there was one other component when it comes to light that's vastly important. It's the other side of the coin with getting them out and letting them experience sunlight. You cannot have a room when you're trying to sleep that has any kind of light in it whatsoever. And so they even talk about getting a regular traditional alarm clock instead of using the phone. Well, I think you can deal with the temptation of reaching over and playing with your phone, but worse is to have a bright alarm clock that has a light on it that is going to disrupt your sleep. So whether you think it's going to or not. So,
Yep, and it talks about hectic schedules. Different kids have different schedules. They vary from week to week and school year to summer. Dr. Sullivan suggests a family-wide buffer zone of 20 minutes to do something relaxing before bedtime. Parents can read out loud, or kids can read a few pages on their own, ideally not on a tablet. They can draw in a coloring book or listen to music, helping them wind down before they start getting ready for bed. If the child is scared, a child might voice anxieties that a robber could break into the home. For example, a natural disaster could hit. Uh, Dr. Canapari says, I remember our kids used to do that. At least one of them said, well, are we safe? What if someone comes in during the night?
especially when it was around Christmas time, they
He's
were scared to death of Santa
Santa
coming
Claus. Yeah, why are we letting Santa come into our house?
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, well,
in. This big old scary guy walking into your house in the middle of the night. Even though he's bringing presents, it just doesn't feel right.
yeah. I don't think many kids are upset about that. I mean, anyways. It's important to ease your child's worries without engaging in a long conversation, Dr. Canapari says. Tell your child it's okay and say you'll demonstrate in the morning the ways your house is secure, for example. If your kid is afraid of the dark, a nightlight can help, but Dr. Canapari recommends making sure it's not so bright you could read in the room while it's on.
I would contest that no amount of light is good in the room. However, having a child who's afraid of the dark, I would say don't put a nightlight in the room. Why don't you put the bathroom light on and shut the door a little bit so they have a little bit of light? But we also, for our kids, because we knew how important it was not to have our sleep disrupted as well, because when you have young ones, that happens all the time. We put a kid's cot at the bottom of our bed when we were expecting Ramin, and told Naveed, anytime you get scared, you're welcome to come in here, but you can't wake mommy and daddy up unless it's an emergency, but you could crawl into bed onto your cot, and you can sleep there anytime you get scared.
Yeah.
So he did. He came in often, but he learned not to wake us up, which was
Yeah.
fantastic and so important when we were getting ready to have number 2. So that was one of the strategies that we used.
Yeah. Even now we have those little sleeping bags in
Yep.
our bedroom. So if one of the kids gets scared, they come and grab a sleeping bag, put it on the floor next to our bed, and go to sleep, and they don't
Yep.
wake us up.
Yep, it's happened less and less and less.
That's a good
So,
thing. Teenagers,
wow, they're a
One-
different breed, aren't they?
once you reach adolescence, you need 8 to 10 hours of sleep, which helps power the growth spurt that many people experience in their teenage years. Meanwhile, puberty and hormonal changes shift your internal clock, prompting you to stay up at night and wake up later each morning. Many teenagers are chronically sleep deprived because they get up so early for school. I've never heard that one before. So I haven't heard this before, that the teenagers need to sleep in the morning.
Sleep later in the morning.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. It's like teenagers are chronically sleep deprived because they have to get up early for school. And I remember
But we've always
when I
had
was
to
in
do
school,
that.
elementary school started at like 7:30 in the morning.
Mhm.
My middle school started at like 8:30 or 9. And then high school started at 7:15.
Interesting.
And I always wondered why that was, but I thought it was because of bus schedules.
That's what I would have caught. That's what
Because
I would have
the
thought as well.
buses have to, get rid of some kids and come pick up some other kids. But the article is saying, and again, this may be beyond my level of knowledge, but why can't teenagers go to bed earlier
Right.
and get the same amount of sleep? And in fact, a lot of sleep studies say earlier part of the night is much more therapeutic for repair and regeneration of the body and brain cells than later on in the night.
Right, because there are certain times where physiologically certain
Correct.
things happen
Yeah.
in the body, which is why, when we were early on, when we first opened the practice and we were doing some in-service talks for the police department, and, we laughed a little bit about talking about those sleep rhythms and what happens, and repair happens at what time typically?
Yeah, we've heard, and I don't know how true this is because different people say different things, but physical repair happens in the first 4 hours from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. and then psychological repair happens from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. I don't quote me on this because there's enough studies that validate that.
Right.
It's just a theory, but we said that's why wackos are on the streets in between
That's
2 and 4 a.m. When
Because
we
they're
were
missing
talking to the
that
police department.
psychological repair.
But then I found out, do you know when the highest amount of crime takes place in the world? What time of day is the highest crime time?
9 o'clock.
It's actually during the evening rush hour.
Oh, that's interesting. When
Yeah,
people are
like
busy and
happy hour.
oh,
It's not so happy.
well,
It's crime hour.
if you knew what was happening, it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
But we're all
Actually, less crime happens through the night
interesting.
than during evening rush hour.
I wonder what kind of crime, though. You know what I mean? There's probably a delineation on like
Right.
lighter crimes versus.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to imagine
like
majority
house
of the
robberies
murders.
don't take place probably at that time.
Right, and
But maybe street fights and things like that.
maybe that sounded like we were back in like the 40s. Street fights. Do those happen anymore?
Gangsters. Drug dealers. I don't know. Early school start times and a lot of homework make getting enough sleep tricky. He says. Experts said that delaying school start time would be the best solution. Until that happens, you can limit your screen time in the hour before going to sleep.
I think I've been trying to get our school to actually not go back in August and just lengthen our days a little bit so we can go back after Labor Day. I haven't gotten that to occur yet, although I am planning a coup. I've started at school talking to teachers
That's
about
not for
that.
health reasons, right? That's for
Oh, no, that's for,
more summer vacation.
yeah, 100%.
Our kids start, August 12th or something? It's really early.
Yeah. So, So anyway, I think the easiest thing to do is, and we should be reducing their screen time. Their kids do not need as much screen time as what they get, and stopping 30 minutes to an hour prior to going to sleep and just reading or doing those things, the old fashioned things that we used to do before all of the
Yeah.
electronics and devices is probably the best bet.
And they talk about kids having stress, and it says
What?
bedtime is often the first time all day when we're not distracted, and anxiety from the day can come into focus. I mean, when I was in high school, and my anxiety was I have a test tomorrow.
Right.
And that's enough anxiety because you never study until last minute.
Well, it's all relative, right?
Carve out time throughout the day to tend to your stress. Dr. Grubagavatula says.
Say that 10 times.
No way. I'll call her Dr. G.
There you go.
Set a timer for a few minutes and write out a list of your worries. Just jotting down your anxieties can help your brain recognize that you're working to address them, which means you're less likely to ruminate at night. Now, I have a different theory on this. I don't think that's a bad suggestion, but the reason you stay focused on your worries at night, it's because your cortisol levels are high at night. If it's hard to fall asleep, it's a cortisol issue. If it's hard to stay asleep, it's a blood sugar issue. We've discussed this to death in other podcasts, so I'm not going to get into it. Just remember that. And so you need to focus on lowering your cortisol, which is like a cortisol reducer that Brandy's taking. Could be
It's a blend
helpful.
of herbs and stuff like that.
Now,
So,
sometimes if that anxiety is because you have a test the next day and you can't sleep because you should be studying, and don't sleep and study. Get your studies done. You need to learn stuff. Sleep experts say that it's critical to block out time to wind down before bed instead of scrolling through your phone seconds before falling asleep. Whether you're up working or engrossed in a TV show, too much stimulation can sabotage your night. So schedule at least half an hour to relax, though it's easier said than done, ideally without a screen. Find an activity that soothes you. Our activity that soothes us is our oldest saying goodnight 6 times.
oh my gosh, I just love him. But yeah, he comes back into the room.
Yeah, that's our nighttime activity. Like he'll go brush his teeth and come and say good night, mom, good night, dad, and then he goes back and maybe he'll
Do something else.
wash his hands and then come back, say good night, mom, good night, dad, and he goes and gets his bed ready to sleep in and comes back, says good night.
I've learned if we shut our light off, as long as our light's not on, and I turn out the hallway light, he doesn't typically come back.
We're gonna miss that.
I know.
We are gonna miss that.
I missed it while he was
He
gone,
used to
actually.
wake up in the morning to give me a hug and kiss before I left for work
And
early
then
in the
go back to
morning,
bed.
and he'd go back to bed. He
Yeah.
did that. He didn't miss a day.
He's such a soft heart.
He's good. They're all good. Maybe that's lounging on the couch with a good podcast, occupying your hands with something like knitting or drawing in a coloring book. If you work out, consider shifting your exercise to the morning instead of close to bedtime, as exercise right before bedtime can make it harder to fall asleep. But in one of the
Although-
previous podcasts, we said exercising at night, if you're obese, helps you lose more weight. Who knows? But they don't say what kind of weight. You could be losing muscle mass and bone mass because it does increase cortisol levels. And if you can't sleep, you're going to lose weight, but you're going to lose the wrong kind of weight.
Correct.
It can take up to 10 hours for caffeine to leave your bloodstream. So a lot of teenagers, I guess, are drinking caffeine with those caffeine energy drinks and stuff. 2 p.m. cup of coffee can linger in your system as you're trying to fall asleep, flooding your brain with signals to stay awake. Now, caffeine has a 3-hour half-life. So 100 milligram cup, 100 milligram caffeine in a cup. 50 milligrams are still in your body 3 hours later. 25 milligrams are still in your body 6 hours later. 12 milligrams are still in your body 9 hours later. So,
Well, going back to moms, keep this in mind. If we're going back to thinking about the infants as well, if you're consuming caffeine throughout the day and you're nursing, your baby is also consuming caffeine throughout the day.
right.
And so, in the
babies
half-life is
metabolize caffeine at a slower rate.
correct.
So for them, I think the half-life is like 12 or 15 hours.
Yeah, it's big. And then there's an accumulation effect too. So
Right.
if you had a cup in the morning and a cup in the afternoon, Well, you have just, if you notice your baby isn't sleeping and is getting irritable, no matter what you do, really look at that caffeine intake. This is from experience. I did this to my child.
You know, one thing I've noticed is it, I don't know if it's getting old or getting in better shape or exercising more or what, but I don't want as much coffee as I used to.
Yeah, I'm the same. I limit, sometimes I don't even finish mine from the morning, which
Right.
is, and I
And I,
don't
I
have
used
less
to
energy.
always get another cup in the afternoon. And now I'll get that cup and I'll drink maybe a third of it and I don't finish it.
Yeah. Yep.
And I used to love that second cup in the afternoon. I drink every sip and then try to get the last drop out.
Licking the inside of his coffee cup.
Exactly. Getting the straw. Anyways, caffeine junkie. It can take up to, okay, we talked about caffeine. Cut yourself off from caffeine at noon is what they say. Try taking a brief, brisk walk to stave off the afternoon slump, or for the more adventurous, stick your head in a freezer for a quick jolt of energy. Now, this is so silly. I don't get it. Now, I don't.
Although all of us that are here in Frederick enjoying these 90-degree days as we are going, head in the freezer sounds pretty good. If you're a
Yeah.
woman going through menopause, you're like, oh
Now,
my gosh,
you
that sounds
do get an
brilliant.
adrenaline rush if you stick your head in ice water.
Hmm.
But I don't know if putting your head in the freezer does the same thing.
I'm
'Cause
going to test it.
I think it has to be ice water, like ice and water.
Yeah, I'd prefer the freezer.
Yeah, but I don't think it's going to give you that jolt it's talking about.
Okay.
Now, speaking about the afternoon slump, you want me to tell them about this or not?
Sure.
Okay, real quick. So, they call it the postprandial dip, where after lunch you get sleepy. Everyone gets sleepy after lunch. They're like, okay, it's because they're eating too much. So they ate less. The study showed they still got they were measuring brain waves. There's a slowing down of brain waves in the afternoon and then comes back up for a short period of time. So then they said, oh, it's probably because they eat too many carbs. So they cut out the carbs. They had only protein and fat for lunch. They still had the same dip in the brain waves. So then they said, why don't we just fast? They don't eat lunch at all. Same thing happened. So that ultimately they discovered that the postprandial dip is actually programmed in us.
So cool.
Some animals are supposed to sleep twice a day. They say humans are probably that. We are designed to sleep in the afternoon and at night.
And there's a lot of cultures who actually have that
I
as
come
a
from
part
that
of
culture.
yeah. I mean, it is so funny when we go to Iran, when we haven't been in several years, but whenever we go, like we would do our morning stuff, like, and then we'd be ready to go out and shop. But then all the shops are closing down around the lunchtime because they all go home, they have
Yeah,
lunch, and
but
then they
pretty much
sleep.
every business is closed from 2 to 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Some close from 1 to 4, but they don't open back up till 4 p.m.
Yeah. So
Even like dentist offices.
yeah, that's another story for another podcast. We'll tell you about the dentist.
We got a dental study. All right. 18% of teenagers have insomnia. There's usually not a clear cause. It could be family history, stress, or significant changes in lifestyle or life plans. Talking to a primary care doctor is a good idea, they say. They remind us of the cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia in teenagers. Then there's adults age 20 to 34, and this is when it starts to get redundant. You should aim to have 7 to 9 hours of sleep in your 20s and early 30s. Pay attention to how tired you are throughout the week. Experts suggest spending several days without setting your alarm and just waking up when your body naturally wants to, which you can try over a 3-day weekend.
Again, if your cortisol levels are not where they should be, if there's so much that goes into that, don't
Yeah.
be frustrated if you go through a weekend or like, I can't wake up before my alarm, because there's probably something physiologically going on that's not allowing you to do that. So it's probably not just you not being able to.
Yeah, they talk about how it's terrible for you to wake up early during the weekdays and late during the weekends.
Well, a lot of people say keeping a consistent,
Yeah.
bedtime and wake time. I mean, what you're doing is you're programming your body,
Right.
and our body runs on programs. That's what it does. And so when we start throwing it curveballs, it doesn't function the same way. So it has to alter. So I don't think that's a bad recommendation. I just don't think it's always feasible for some people,
Yeah.
especially if you have young kids.
That Dr. G, that I can't pronounce her full name, says if you have to use an alarm clock to wake up every morning, and for me it's every not every single morning. There are mornings I wake up before the alarm, but I try to get up at 5 a.m. So,
Right.
but anyways, if you have to use your alarm clock every single morning, you're sleep deprived.
Yeah.
That's one of the signs of sleep deprivation. Um,
There's not much new in this article after that. I mean, it continues to go through how much sleep is required for, 35 to 40. And then, it goes on to,
and that 35 to 40 wasn't a whole lot different.
no,
But they do start to get into, they talk about alcohol, and that's critical to know is that alcohol might make you sleepy, but it does mess up your sleep cycle.
yes.
So I always recommend drinking alcohol, and then if you, I don't recommend drinking, but if you have to drink and you're gonna drink, don't do it close to bedtime. Do it earlier.
Right.
Yeah. So and it does things that make you sleepy. Even sleep medication, things that make you sleepy actually affect your REM sleep. You don't go deep enough.
Yeah. And there's a very small window. I suffered from insomnia when I was younger. From even a young kid, I struggled with sleep. So as a upper teen and young adult, I didn't know better. And so I did a lot of sleep medication, like over the counter. And there was a very small window. And so what was really tough is if I did not go to sleep during that window of time where I was sleepy enough, I would go right past it. And then I would have to either just suffer through the rest of the night or I would have to take another dose.
Cough syrup.
Ah.
That's what you take, right?
No,
I can't mention the brand name.
no, I didn't do cough syrup.
It starts with N.
No. I only did that if I was under the weather and I didn't know other supplements to take.
That makes you super sleepy though.
It does, but the same product is in a lot of the over-the-counter sleep aids. So,
Yeah.
But-
Or like a antihistamine makes you drowsy.
it does. Mm-hmm.
And that one starts with a B.
They also talk about, women going through, perimenopause or menopause, dealing with things like hot flashes and whatnot. There are great supplements that can help to get rid of or reduce some of those experiences. They suck. I've been there. I know. So there are supplements that can help with that. And then also getting your hormones balanced. The one thing that I think has also contributed to being able to sleep well is making sure that my testosterone, my progesterone, all of those are really well balanced so that my sleep can happen the way it's supposed to and I don't have those other side effects. So ladies, get your hormones checked.
Yeah,
Get
I
them
mean,
balanced.
I like one of the suggestions. It talks about having a sleep diary and making a note of like what you ate, what you drank, whether it was coffee, what time you stopped drinking coffee, alcohol, and then make a note of how you felt the next day.
And a lot of your technology now, like your watches have like a sleep,
Like heart rate variability and,
Yeah,
and
so
whether you hit REM sleep and
there's
how
a lot
much
of testing you
how many
can do.
times you moved in the middle of the night, whether you stopped breathing at night, and pulse rate and things like that.
Yeah.
Another one they talk about is shift work. In your working years, shift work is actually by the CDC categorized as a carcinogen,
Yeah.
which means it's as bad as smoking. So if you work nights for a week and then days for a week and nights for a week, you're susceptible to type 2 diabetes and cancer.
Absolutely.
Highly susceptible. So you got to be very, very careful, which means if you sleep during the day, you need to be in a pitch black, dark room. They don't say that in the article. And then if you want to wake up, expose yourself to bright lights through your working hours, so your body thinks it's daytime.
And doing the sunlight lamps are one of the best ways to do that too.
Yeah.
So just knowing like the over the head, lights that we all are not
Yeah,
necessarily
they call
the
them
best.
full spectrum light bulbs or full spectrum light baths. They call them.
Yeah.
They give you some UVB rays. They won't make you tan, but they say 8 hours under that light bulb is equivalent to 15 minutes in the sun.
Yeah. Which is great. So. All right.
Then there's the older people, right? The retired age, and they said when you retire, your rhythm gets actually. One thing they mentioned, and I want to talk about this in the age between 40 and 50. It says you should aim for 7 or more hours of sleep. and skimping could have big implications. And they mentioned the immune system for the first time. Now, the reason your immune system tanks if you don't sleep enough is because your adrenal glands, and again, the article doesn't say that. It just says if you're not sleeping enough, you'll get sick more often. And it's because they're saying it's because you're older now,
Right.
and sleep you need to, but that's not true. It's because your adrenal glands have been under stress for your whole life, and finally they're depleted. So supporting your adrenal glands is huge. That's why, like, some of the supplements we give people who have colds and flus is to support their adrenal glands to bring their energy back up, and then the body can recover from a cold or a flu. So that's
Yep.
why sleep is so important. Because so real quick, one test is if you get lightheaded, like you get up quickly, you get lightheaded, that's your adrenals. Or you're on blood pressure medication that's too high for you. Most likely, though, it's your adrenal glands. Your adrenal glands are depleted, and that's why you're getting lightheaded. Also, if you can drink coffee and go to bed and sleep fine, you have adrenal deficiency there also, or adrenal fatigue, and you need to talk to a dietitian or a naturopathic physician and improve the function of your adrenal glands.
Yep.
And then they mentioned retired age is when people are they don't have a schedule.
Yeah,
So
their
their structure
structure is
goes
different.
away, and that's why they don't, their days get all messed up, and they hit depression, they hit anxiety, all kinds of problems, which goes to show we really should never retire.
Well, and a lot of that is a lack of movement too. So, sometimes when now we have a great group of retired patients that come in from a
Homewood.
local, from Homewood, and man, fantastic group. And let me tell you, those retirees
Yeah.
are busy and active, and
They have
it-
programs, they have activities, they're working out, exercising, they have
you
trainers.
can see the difference in
Yeah.
that group of patients versus others that are
Everybody
not.
at Homewood is 10 years younger than their age.
Yeah, it's
Minimum.
amazing.
The 90-year-olds act like they're 70.
Yeah.
Bottom line, that's it. And they have the same energy, strength, abilities,
Yeah.
all that stuff. It's very cool.
One of them was out there at Costco yesterday. I got to see,
Oh,
and
really?
she thought I couldn't hear her. She's like, she probably can't hear me. She has her earphones on. I'm like, they're not on. I see you. So good to see you again.
They did talk about how going through menopause can affect your sleep. Hot flashes, make sure you have cool sheets,
Yep.
cool, breathable sheets. But listen,
That doesn't
the
always
purpose of do you know why you have sheets at night? Why you put sheets over your body at night?
No.
Okay, everyone thinks it's to stay warm. Has nothing to do with that. The sheets block light. You're supposed to cover your body so that there's no light. Light hits your skin, you stop producing melatonin. Your skin produces melatonin in darkness. The darker it is, the better. So if your room is pitch black dark, you don't need sheets. You'll be able to sleep just fine. Otherwise, you need to cover yourself up. And also the weight, like weighted heavy blankets can comfort you to fall
Yeah.
asleep as well, as long as it's not too hot.
Love it.
A lot of stuff on sleep.
Yeah, that was a big article. So
Yep, and they talked about the 70-plus-year-olds as well, and I don't think they said anything different.
no, all of the rest of the recommendations were pretty straightforward.
Yeah. The only thing I would say about the people who are over 76 is a lot of people over 76 have 18 to 30 prescription meds
It's a lot.
per year. Can you imagine, on average?
Yeah.
That's a lot. And then
It's
if
a
you add
lot.
to it some kind of over-counter sleep aid,
Mm-hmm.
you have no idea what it's doing to your body.
Right.
And that's when a lot of people start having fatal chemical accidents. So I think we're out of time.
We are. I can't believe we only got through one today.
We got through one article.
It was like 80 pages long in all
But
fairness.
the other article was about sleep as well. So maybe we can talk about this next time. It talked about how circadian rhythm is connected to major depressive disorder. If you're battling depression, then it could be a sleep issue. And so we'll touch on that next
We'll
time.
start with that next time, and then we have some really fun ones about how to stay safe
How to
with
eat
the heat.
watermelons.
And how wonderful watermelons are. I've been eating a lot of watermelon lately. I love it.
I don't like watermelons.
Nope.
You can have it.
Going to.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Please comment, subscribe, and share. Let us know what you think. And if you have articles you want us to review, send them. Send them to us.
Yeah.
We'll read them, review them, and tell you what we think. So take care. God bless you. We love you. We thank you. We appreciate you watching or listening. And have a wonderful week.
We'll see you next time.